You know what I want to do this weekend? I want to lose some subscribers. I know. Let's talk about gun control.
He is coming. Cover your butt.
I want to start this video off by saying that unlike the people that I usually respond to, Max is not an idiot. So please don't be a dick to him. This is going to be a very long clip of Max talking, but I couldn't find a way to trim it down without losing the main point of Max's argument.
Woo. Recently, an event made the press in which an Uber self-driving car during testing struck and killed a woman in Arizona. This follows what I believe was the very first self-driving car accident, which occurred in May of 2016, in which a Tesla model self-driving car, allegedly while in self-driving mode, crashed, ending the life of a passenger on board. Now, I'm not in any way against the development of self-driving cars, and even if I was, I see them as an inevitable technology which will come to fruition, problematic or not, perfect or not, and reach the ubiquitous mainstream well within my lifetime. But events like these highlight a customary cultural truism, which almost certainly will be adopted once they reach the market for purchase. And that is that self-driving cars don't need to be perfect, they just need to be more safe than the average driver in order to yield the utility which we expect from them. When they inevitably do become the status quo, no doubt accidents will still happen. And what are we to do in those situations except analyze the situation, adjust the software, and move on? After all, you can't try by jury a car with no will or sentience of its own. However, like any belligerent, hard-headed American, if you asked me if I would want to own a self-driving car at this time, my answer would be a resounding no, citing that I'm a better driver than it. After all, I've never gotten in a fatal or near-fatal car accident for which I was at fault, and it has. That's the best data we have so far, though no doubt it's a facile argument because self-driving cars have driven millions and millions of miles, whereas in my short little time span of driving, I've driven much less. So chances are that already this isn't true, and I would actually be more safe putting my life in the hands of this autonomous machine than risking it going rogue. Something tells me that logically, my odds of getting in a fatal or near-fatal accident were I to drive the same number of miles as all self-driving cars have since their conception combined, I would incur on average more than 2 of these because, in the words of Ed Norton in Fight Club,
on a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everyone drops to 0.
Regardless, I'm sure I'm not alone in the let me drive my own car camp. Either you're of the same opinion as I am, or you can reasonably see why someone would be skeptical and want to remain the master of their own domain and drive their own car.
No. There is no way to reasonably understand what you have just said because you didn't arrive at your conclusion reasonably. Wanting to be the master of your domain is solely based on how you feel, and it is not a reasoned conclusion that is arrived at by looking at research. You have instead decided to use the way that you feel as a rubric, and more interestingly, you are aware that this is what you are doing, and you're okay with it. Funnily enough, you would actually be correct in being skeptical about the safety of self-driving cars, as the jury is still out on how safe autonomous vehicles really are. But even though you were right about your conclusion, you arrived at it for the wrong reasons. You are correct by chance, and that is no way to make decisions. And that will be the crux of your support for gun rights. Not looking at research, not expecting the issue critically, but letting your feelings make the decisions for you. And this is a dangerous road to take. What you are doing is no different than what anti-vaxxers do when arguing against the widespread use of vaccines.
And then we got pressured by our pediatrician to start a little earlier, and so we did, and we started Kayla on her first rounds of DTaP, and she had instant reactions. I mean, I'm a mom, so when people say parents don't know better than their doctor, that's such a lie because we're with our children 24/7. We know every freckle, every speck on their body. We know how they breathe at night. We know everything. We look at everything because we're obsessed with them. It's our baby that we created. And so I saw an immediate change in her immune system.
Like you, Max, this mom is certain that she knows better about the subject than the very people who have dedicated their lives to the study of the human body. Like your comparison between an autonomous car and you driving, one of these people has far more experience with disease, medication, and the human immune system than the other, yet the mother is skeptical based on her feelings.
So we passed legislation declaring firearms to be outlawed. Now, no doubt at least some folks would still own firearms, and no doubt at least some of those folks would still use them to kill, even in cold blood. In this scenario, if you are a law-abiding citizen, you have no recourse for self-defense. By doing the right thing and obeying the laws of your jurisdiction, you are creating a sitting duck scenario in which you, the well-intentioned, are proper fucked, and the wrongdoer is even more empowered than they are today. Now, were I to have had a firearm with which to defend myself, I would have stood at least a formidable chance of continuing to live in this scenario.
And here, the similarities continue.
And my husband was at work. He'd been gone for a couple days, and I took our little one in for her checkup, and they basically pinned me in a corner and said, "You're a bad mom because you're not giving your daughter her shots, and what's the matter with you?" And they gave me this horrific form to sign saying that I was basically putting my daughter's life at risk by not choosing to vaccinate that day. And so I said, fine, just give me the DTaP. Like, we'll just do one DTaP, because I just felt so bullied and so pressured. And I remember sitting there holding back tears and not wanting to do it. And they came in with the needle, and I still remember it going into her leg, and I still remember the feeling in my gut and wishing that I would have stood my ground. And we walked out of there, and she screamed for, I mean, it felt like an entire day. But she, from that point on, developed a sleep disorder. She didn't sleep for the first 14 months of her life. It took me about a year after we started sleeping for me to figure out that it was really from the vaccine that she got.
Scare tactics and what-ifs. Like before, you are using your feelings rather than research and critical thinking to arrive at your conclusion. One evening, after a bottle of wine, a friend and I started talking about gun control. He is a proud gun-owning American, and in order to try to convince me that I also need a gun for my protection, he asked me what I would do if a thief broke into my apartment. My stock answer to this question is, I don't own anything that is worth a human life. My friend was not satisfied with this answer, and he started escalating the situation. The burglar first had a knife, then a gun. Eventually, the criminal was out to murder me. A complete stranger was now hypothetically breaking into my apartment to murder me. At this point, I asked my friend why a stranger would want to kill me. As arrogant as I am, I don't think I'd pissed off people enough to have someone want to kill me. The scenario simply escalated again, and now there was a whole gang of ruffians ready to rape my wife and make me watch. And if only I had a gun, I could have prevented it all. I used this example to show how you can construct a scenario to pretty much back up any idea. What if it turns out that vaccines do cause autism? Wouldn't it be safer to avoid vaccines rather than risk a child catching autism? What if God is real and you don't believe? Wouldn't it be safer to believe rather than going to hell? What if today you buy a winning lottery ticket? Why not spend all your life savings on lottery tickets, since if you win, you will easily gain back all the money that you spend on lottery tickets? What if someone breaks into your house? Wouldn't it be safer to own a gun and never use it rather than being unprepared? This is nothing more than Pascal's wager for guns. Create a fear of a rather specific and unrealistic situation. What's more is that there's nothing wrong with being prepared. I have renter's insurance and car insurance that far surpasses the legal requirements. I carry jumper cables with me, and I have a rechargeable battery that serves as a power source in case of an outage. There is nothing wrong with being prepared, but there is something wrong with being prepared with an item that won't actually serve its function when needed. Well, we don't know what would happen if guns were banned in the US, whether we would see a drop in the number of mass shootings. What we do know is the level of safety a gun provides. In October of 2017, Scientific American ran a wonderful article on the common gun owner talking points, like, owning a gun makes a household safer. The studies that Scientific American cites come to the opposite conclusion. Now, it's entirely possible that these studies are flawed, or that Scientific America is just a part of the liberal media pushing the liberal agenda. But you didn't bring these studies to the table. You brought the way you feel to the table. And sure, a gun may make you feel safer. A friend of mine started sleeping with his gun under his pillow after he purchased it. But that doesn't actually mean that you are safer, and all you are doing is fear-mongering.
I find it fascinating how after every school shooting, the same old argument gets pulled out of the closet to be redressed, as if somehow it has more merit than it did last year, or last month. As if I'm supposed to change my mind based on an anecdotal scenario.
I find it fascinating how after every school shooting, the same old argument gets brought up, as if I'm supposed to change my mind based on a hypothetical situation that relies entirely on fear.
The danger of introducing legislation which doesn't work, but still does curb our freedoms, is that it shifts the goalpost ever so slightly over time. 30 years from now, I predict it right here, there will be calls for a ban on human-driven automobiles. Every single time a driver unintentionally hits somebody on a backcountry road in Montana, doubly so if they were drunk, quadruply so if they were drunk and they did it intentionally. Save us from ourselves, they'll cry. They'll march, they'll protest, they'll shout obscenities and make signs. And these sentiments will likely be as ineffective in the immediate as they are today. But these actions have a lasting impact in that they help to shape the public opinion on the matter, and as a result, the public vote. And when you get a populist governmental figure promising to act on the public sentiments, a paradigm shift will occur, and new policy will overwrite and erode more of our autonomy.
Here, the talking points between Max and anti-vaxxers once again seem similar. The thing is, you're not wrong, and neither are anti-vaxxers. You would be losing rights, in the same way that slave owners lost the right to own people. But is it really a bad thing? Losing a right is neither a good thing nor a bad thing. That is the problem with this kind of argument. Losing freedoms, losing rights, it's all a matter of perspective. A conservative Christian may see that having to sign a marriage license for gay people is them losing their freedom of religion, while a gay couple may see it as an expansion of their rights. An anti-vaxxer will say that mandatory vaccination takes away freedom to make health decisions, while the children whose lives are saved every year due to vaccines might have a different perspective. A gun owner may say that losing the ability to buy certain types of gun is losing rights, but a parent with school-age children may see this as a way to protect their children. Losing rights is a matter of perspective, not an absolute. Or would you really argue that slavery should not have been outlawed, lest the government overreach and take away a slave owner's right to own another human being? Your arguments are based on feelings. Guns make you feel safe. Having the ability to own a gun makes you feel comfortable. Your arguments are based on your feelings, and there's no real way to argue against that. The way that you feel is real, so I can't tell you that your feelings are wrong. I also can't help you reason your way out of your feelings, since you didn't reason your way into them. But it's worth pointing out the dangers of solely letting your feelings dictate your decision making.